Questprobe was a series of adventure games written for the Sinclair ZX Spectrum in the early 1980s, although they were also available on many other platforms including the Commodore 64, BBC Micro, Dragon 32 and Apple II series. Adventure International, founded in 1979, quickly established itself publishing home computer text adventure games such as Adventureland, Pirates Cove and Voodoo Castle. When Marvel Comics decided to get into the home computer market, they approached Scott Adams, CEO of Adventure International, who had been a fan of Marvel Comics since childhood. The first to be released featured the Hulk, the start of a 12-part series that enabled Adventure International to use Marvel characters in text-style adventure games. Along with each computer game in the series, Marvel produced an associated comic. Although each stood on their own, to get the complete story, the comic would need to be read and the game played to the end. There were two versions of the Hulk Questprobe comic, a large glossy magazine format for the UK market and a US version which was smaller in size. Games were loaded into the ZX Spectrum using cassette tape. You can see the title screen completing this initial load process. It will take over another 4 minutes to load the complete game into memory. During this time you will note the various colours and patterns displayed on the borders. With every adventure series there needs to be a common thread. As each game in the series will feature different Marvel characters, the Chief Examiner was created by John Byrne, one of Marvel's writers and artists, along with the game's developer Scott Adams. As the stories unfold in the games and the comics, the Chief Examiner turns out to be a robot who was constructed to evaluate and analyse different heroes throughout the universe. He did this by placing the heroes in simulations, so he could replicate them in an attempt to save his pacifist people by building an artificial giant containing all these powers to act as a champion for his planet. The art for the Chief Examiner was based on photographs of Scott Adams, so in effect the game's designer appears as a cameo in the Questprobe series. Other heroes in the adventure include Doctor Strange, master of the mystical arts, who is there to provide clues, but due to limitations of the game he is unable to join you on your quest. The superhero Ant-Man makes an appearance in the game. You need to work out if he is connected to the deadly alien ants that are milling around outside the dome. He can also assist you with one of the challenges. The supervillain Ultron can be found in a cavern, but you need to use Bruce Banner's brain to outthink this foe in order to defeat him. This adventure is not just about Hulk smash in order to win each time. There is also a memory of Nightmare, a supervillain that Hulk has fought in the past. This can be very useful in certain circumstances in the game to make the Hulk very angry. As with all text adventure games, it is important to make a map of where you have explored. There are a number of domes that look identical in the game, and it is easy to become lost. One strategy is to drop objects that you have found that don't appear to have any use in the game next to each dome. This way you can identify the domes to ensure you know where you are. Although a number of the challenges do require the intellect of Bruce Banner to solve the puzzles, sometimes don't be afraid to use the brute strength of the Hulk to make good progress. Some hidden locations require you to dig in order to find secret areas in the game with hidden gems. This will end up with the Hulk being underground. It has taken over 5 minutes to load the 48K Questprobe adventure game into the ZX Spectrum via cassette tape, while I've been providing this overview of the game. At the time, this was the main way of loading software into home computers until faster and larger data storage options were developed. Once the load process has been completed, you are given the option to load a previous game. As it is unlikely that you will complete this adventure in one sitting, you can save your progress to cassette tape and reload at a later date. After a brief introduction, you find yourself as Bruce Banner tied to a chair. What do you want to do? This text adventure game allows you to type in simple two-word commands to move the story forward. In this instance, you need the strength of the Hulk to break free of the chair. You need to be angry to change into the Hulk, so why not try bite lip? As you scream in pain, you transform into the Hulk. Throughout the game you will see important scenes displayed in beautiful 8-bit graphics to enhance the story, just like a comic book. You will also note that in this instance you need to hit the Enter key to continue the story. As you do, the next picture is displayed depicting the Incredible Hulk breaking the rope and getting free of his bonds and the chair. Again, to progress the story you need to hit the Enter key. Unfortunately, the quest is not going to be that easy, as gas fills the room, permeating your skin and transforming you back into puny Bruce Banner. These simple 8-bit comic style pictures are great for the era and bring the text adventure to life. Hitting the Enter key again, you find yourself in a room. One of the most common commands to type is the word look, as it describes what you see, along with any items you may be able to interact with, plus any obvious exits. In this instance, you're in a dome. Visible items include a mirror, broken chair, gem, metal hand fan, a large iron ring set in the floor, and a sign. The only exit appears to be east. Another common command is read, so a valid two-word response such as read sign allows you to see what is written on the sign. It reads, "This computer model has been created so that you will learn to perform as the Hulk. To prove that you can supply the brains as well as control the Hulk's brawn, you must collect all the gems and store them into the proper location. Good luck." Typing the word look again brings up the room description, items and exits. As the sign said you must collect all the gems and store them in the proper location, you are able to pick up the visible gem using the command get gem. It is now time to start moving around the adventure locations. You can do this by navigating the visible exits from each location. In this instance, east. You don't need to type the command in full, simply type the letter E and you move to the next location. Looking at the simple 8-bit comic style picture, it appears though you have found the exit to the dome. There are some symbols to the left of the exit. What could this mean? Perhaps using the look command again will give you more information to help you move forward in your quest to collect all the gems. Later that same year in 1984, Adventure International released the second of the Questprobe adventures for the ZX Spectrum, this time featuring Spider-Man, shipped on cassette in a colourful A5 size box. As distributing the large UK glossy magazine format of the Hulk had proved challenging, this time the UK market received a small newspaper style version of the comic included inside the game box. Instead of a separate instruction manual as per the Hulk, the instructions for the Spider-Man game for the UK market were printed at the back of this comic. The US market got their second instalment of Questprobe in the usual US size Marvel comic format. It is worth noting that it is now difficult to find a good copy of the UK Questprobe Spider-Man comic due to its limited print run. Going back to the familiar ZX Spectrum screen, the load command is input to start the lengthy process of loading the 48K game from cassette tape into memory. For the second installment, Scott Adams developed a new adventure game engine, allowing for a slightly better vocabulary. It also enabled the inclusion of many more villains to go up against Spidey. However, due to limitations of 8-bit machines of the time, acting out battles with foes was just not possible. So again, the game took the format of a puzzle-type adventure, relieving the villains of any gems they have rather than fighting them. Whereas the Hulk adventure took place on an alien world, Spider-Man takes place in the more familiar setting of the Daily Bugle newspaper office building. You were able to use Spidey's wall-crawling abilities to move around the many floors and ceilings of the building. You can also move up and down the elevator shafts and air vents, making for a truly three-dimensional map to explore. It is possible to solve some of the puzzles by putting Peter Parker's biophysics degree to good use. Using the fully equipped chemistry lab, it is possible to create a cure for the lizard, changing him back to Dr. Connors. Remember, just like the Hulk adventure, you can't defeat all the supervillains by simply punching them. Stopping the cassette tape gives a loading error, as there are much quicker ways of loading this 8-bit game now. One option is to use the original ZX Spectrum Interface 2, which allows the connection of a ROM to the computer. Good friend and fellow YouTuber Steve 8-bit builds custom ROM cards for the ZX Spectrum. Check out his channel and follow the link to his eBay or SD shop if you're interested in these custom ROM cards. Steve 8-bit was kind enough to make a Questprobe ROM specifically for this video to reduce the load times while recording footage of the game from around 5 minutes to a matter of seconds via a custom menu. You will note that the custom Questprobe ROM has the option to select 3 of the Questprobe adventure games. Selecting Spider-Man takes you straight to the loading screen for the game. From here you still get the option to load a previously saved game. You are initially presented with an 8-bit picture of a hallway in the Daily Bugle building. The text format is similar to the Hulk, with a description of the location, any visible items and available exits. Having already explored the Spider-Man game in previous sessions, I know to head west at this point, so I simply type the letter W. The 8-bit picture shows a crib and a pile of sand. This is confirmed in the text description. As you entered the room from the west, it also makes sense that the exit is back the way you came, which would be east. This time you will also notice that your spider sense is tingling, as someone says, "Ouch." What could this be? As before, you can look at items, so you can type "Look crib." However, instead of seeing anything of note in the crib, Sandman appears. This must have been the pile of sand you stood on as you walked into the room. Best make a quick exit from the room by going east. A new feature for this game is that being Spider-Man, you can type "climb roof" as only a spider can. Then returning to the room, being on the ceiling, you don't disturb the Sandman by standing on him as a pile of sand, so you are able to look crib. On the first look you can see a formula that could be useful later. Sometimes it is best to look again in case you missed anything. In this instance, your second look crib reveals a gem. To take the gem you simply type "get gem." Deciding not to get the formula just yet, you can exit the room to explore the Daily Bugle building further. In order to interact with most objects in the game, you need to be on the floor, so a quick go floor gets you off the ceiling and back onto the floor. Going east takes you to one of the elevators. The 8-bit picture shows you the elevator doors and the call button. Using your spider strength you can open doors. For an 8-bit adventure game, it is great to see an updated picture of the open doors, revealing the elevator shaft now that the doors have been forced open. You can even look shaft to see if there are any items to collect. but in order to search more you will need to climb into the shaft, but at this stage we can return west to find your ally in the game. Heading north and then north again along the hallway takes you to another room. In here you will find Madam Web, which is the location where you need to drop all the gems to complete the Spider-Man quest. You can tell Scott Adams had access to the Marvel Universe Encyclopedia to include this character and others in the game. Let's leave Spider-Man with Madam Web for now, as we look at some more of the great 8-bit pictures from the game. Mysterio is the main villain in the Spider-Man adventure game, and his illusions provide some of the best puzzles in the game as he controls an entire floor of the Daily Bugle building. As alluded to earlier, you can defeat the Lizard by using the chemistry lab to create a cure that will turn him back into Dr. Connors, and enabling Spider-Man to obtain another gem. Other classic supervillains include the Ringmaster, who proves to be a worthy opponent for Spider-Man and presents another brain teaser that has to be solved in order to beat him and obtain the gem from his location. There is even a supervillain team-up in the form of Dr. Octopus and Electro, a formidable duo that will require you to outthink these two powerful characters in order to knock them out and get the gem. There are even opportunities to climb around the outside of the building in addition to the various elevator shafts and air ducts. This is probably my favourite 8-bit picture in the Spider-Man game. Oh, and I almost forgot, Madam Web can provide in-game clues to help you on your quest, which is another great feature of the game. Over a year had passed before Adventure International released the third Questprobe game for the ZX Spectrum in 1986, featuring Human Torch and Thing, two members of the Fantastic Four. This game was released on cassette in a double-sized clamshell, with no UK version of the comic, just the familiar US-sized Marvel format comic. The cover artwork was split in half, which mirrored the comic storyline and the unique feature of the third game. Using the custom Questprobe ROM cartridge built by Steve 8-bit, the Human Torch and Thing game can be selected from the menu screen. This presents the loading screen, but in my opinion the computer artist has tried to put too much detail into the picture. Losing some of the unique style of the 8-bit graphics picture, this theme continues throughout the game. As you are given the option to restore a saved game, a list of characters that will feature are listed. These seem to comprise of the Circus of Crime and Dr. Doom, the main villain in the game. Unlike the first two games, you are introduced to the Chief Examiner, and the adventure game engine has been further improved to allow more than 2 command words to be input at a time. If you engage the Chief Examiner in conversation, he will inform you that in this test you must free Alicia Masters from Dr. Doom. You'll have to master the powers of 2 Marvel superheroes. You will note that there is no mention of any gems to collect to complete this quest. Pressing any key will continue the game, and you find yourself in a tar pit as the Thing, which introduces the most interesting mechanic in the series so far. You are able to switch from being either the Thing or the Human Torch. To remind yourself which hero you are playing at any point in the game, you are always presented with the character's name and the start of a sentence which reads, "I want you to." In this case, I will try the new switch command, which moves control to the Human Torch, who is in a different location to the Thing. A valley surrounded by hills, and you can see here a giant tar pit, a shack, and you can also go east. Note that the location description, objects of interest, and available exits are all provided in one sentence. This was done to enhance the game, and make it feel more like a sandbox as opposed to a predefined maze. In addition to going in compass directions, you can now go to an object of interest. Human Torch, I want you to go shack. I'm in an old shack. I can see here a candle. I can go south. That object might be useful. Human Torch, I want you to get candle. Now I can type Human Torch, I want you to exit. This brings you back to the previous location. If you forget what you are carrying, you can type Inventory. You can then see that you have a candle you picked up in the shack, and you are already carrying Reed Richards' watch, another member of the Fantastic Four. As you know the thing is in a tar pit, you could type Fly Pit to get to this location. Note that I just typed pit instead of the full word tar pit. Arriving at the new location, you see Thing. If you switch at this point, your perspective changes and you are looking at the Human Torch from the tar pit. You will also note that the Thing is being sucked down by something. Let's switch again and take another look at the Thing from the Human Torch. I now decide to land, igniting the tar pit and killing the Thing. If either character dies during the quest, then the game is over and you have to start again. As previously mentioned, I prefer the simple 8-bit pictures of the first two games as opposed to the more detailed ones used in Human Torch and Thing. This picture depicts the town of Latveria, home of Doctor Doom. One of the locations on the outskirts of Latveria depicts a large circus tent, the home to the infamous Ringmaster and the Circus of Crime, a deadly group of supervillains. The Ringmaster, leader of the Circus of Crime, can be seen in this picture, along with from left to right, Fire Eater, the Clown, Livewire, the Flying Gambonus, Princess Python and Cannonball. The Blob can be seen blocking the entrance to Doctor Doom's castle. It will prove quite a puzzle to move this immovable object to gain access to the castle to free Alicia Masters. Originally intended as a 12-issue limited series, with Marvel publishing the comic books to support the computer games developed by Scott Adams, it was cancelled after just 3 releases due to the bankruptcy of Adventure International. It is understood that the 4th installment of the game featuring Magneto and Rogue had been partly coded by Scott Adams, but sadly it never saw the light of day as a published game. However, the Marvel comic book intended for issue 4 of Questprobe, featuring the X-Men, was later published in Marvel Fanfare issue 33 in July 1987, with the final events of the Questprobe storyline concluding in a few issues of the comic book Quasar. There are many speculations as to what other characters may have appeared in the remaining 8 titles of the Questprobe series, from Mr. Fantastic, Sue Storm and Doctor Strange, but we will never really know for sure. Having covered the limited Questprobe series from the perspective of the computer games developed for the ZX Spectrum, I highly recommend you visit the Retro Marvel Man YouTube channel for an in-depth review of the comic books that accompanied these games. In collaboration similar to Adventure International and Marvel Comics, the Retro Attic Mancave and Retro Marvel Man have published these Questprobe reviews from an 8-bit game and comic book perspective. Do check out the Retro Marvel Man channel, where he does in-depth reviews of the history and storylines of Marvel Comics. I especially enjoyed the series covering Captain Britain, being my all-time favourite Marvel comic book hero. The formal history reviews at the table are complemented by a casual read-through of the comic on the sofa, with extracts of the artwork for flavour. Look out for this thumbnail featuring the Hulk on the Retro Marvel Man channel for the Questprobe comic book review. Although Questprobe featuring the Human Torch and Thing was the most technically advanced adventure, with the ability to switch between characters and a more free-form text experience, for me the 8-bit graphics did not work, and the limited cast of supervillain interactions made it my least favourite of the three. It was a difficult choice, but since producing this video, the Hulk has gone to second place, as the wooden feel of this text adventure and the frustration at times when trying to solve a puzzle that requires a specific response has aged the game over time. For me, the Questprobe Spider-Man game has the best balance of graphics, playability, storyline and villains to make for a very rewarding 8-bit adventure experience. Taking control of the wall crawler, interacting with a whole host of supervillains, using Peter Parker, the science geek, to solve the various puzzles along the way, means with great power comes great adventure game. If you have enjoyed this Questprobe review, don't forget to like the video, and why not subscribe to the channel if you wish to see similar content from the Retro Attic Man Cave.